people have had my wonderful bread. I've had a lot of requests for a video on how to make it. The key to the bread, it's actually really simple except for the starter. Now, Kelly has actually linked a video for the starter that you'll see at the end of the video. You can go to a bakery and get some. It takes about 2 weeks to make the starter, but once you have the starter, the key to making this easy is get a couple of containers, drill a hole in the top, and you have to mix it every time you use it. You'll see that in the video. So you mix it up every time you use it. This is fairly new, so it's firm. After a few weeks or months, you can actually pour it out. It's liquid. But the key is don't use it all up. What you want to do is when you get to less than 100 grams, which is what you have to use in the recipe, you add equal amounts of flour and water, mix it up, and put it in another container. You can use these containers to figure out how much is in it. Put that on the scale, and then put that on, and that'll tell you how much starter you have. If it's less than 100, make a new batch, put it in, leave it out 1 hour, and then put it in the fridge. That's all you have to do for the sourdough bread. And everything else you'll see in the video coming up. Thank you. Okay, as we were making the video, my mom, who's behind the scenes, mentioned that we have some that are a couple months old. So this can show you
1 month.
1 month, all the alcohol that's collected. And if you mix it up, in fact, why don't I quickly do it? If you mix it up, you'll see how much looser this is than the new stuff. But actually this stuff tastes better. So you could actually pour it if you wanted to. Where this stuff is still pretty firm. It comes out in a big glob. So that's a perfect demonstration of the difference of this, but they're both good. They're both equally effective. Although this is a little stronger sourdough taste. In your larger bowl, set the scale to 0, add 350 grams of all-purpose flour, after which you can add 100 grams of whole wheat flour. The key is the total should be 450. You can choose any ratio you wish. Mix the flour so that it's well mixed, and then set it aside. And take out your starter, mix it up. Often there will be hooch or alcohol on the top, so you have to mix it up. Then in the smaller bowl, place 300 grams of water, non-chlorinated, room temperature. I use spring water usually, but you can use tap water if you leave it out overnight. And then non-ionized salt, I use sea salt, 8 grams. And then you add the starter. Now this is firm starter because it's fairly new. After a few weeks, it gets softer and softer until it's actually liquid. But when it's this firm, you want to soften it up. So you just kind of smush it against the sides, but it doesn't have to be liquid. Just soften it up a bit before you add it to the flour mixture. When you add it to the flour mixture, try and get everything, all the salt and water, get it all out of the bowl and place the bowl aside. You're going to need it later. Then just start folding over the flour and water. It takes a little while, but it will eventually firm up into a dough ball, and you will be able to get all the flour moist. You won't think so at the start, but if you just keep turning the bowl and folding over the mixture, eventually it turns into a firm dough ball. Once it's firm and all the flour is gone, place it into the smaller bowl that you used for the liquid, and then clean and dry the larger bowl. Once it's clean and dry, add a little bit of olive oil, just enough to be able to spread out throughout the bowl so that the next day you will not have it stick to the bowl. Then put the dough back in the larger bowl, place saran wrap over the top, and leave it overnight. I usually do this in the evening, and then the next day you continue. Anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. You can slow it down by putting it in the fridge if you want to take longer. Once the dough has at least doubled, usually 12 to 24 hours, you can then prepare the loaf pan same way by putting olive oil in and spreading it all over on the sides and the corners. Then put all-purpose flour on a hard surface and put the dough mixture. I usually use the spatula and put a bit of olive oil from the pan on it so it doesn't stick, and try and keep the dough all in one piece as you push it out onto the flour mixture. You then take your scraper and try and make it as long and narrow as possible. You may need more flour. If it sticks at all to the scraper, add flour and just get it as long and narrow as possible. Now roll the bread up until it is completely rolled, and then use the scraper to push the sides in so that you can't see any of the rolled part. Again, you may have to add flour, and you want it to be about the size of the pan, so it should be oval. And once you are done, move it, and you'll see a lot of the flour that is collected. I usually move it 2 or 3 times until you don't see a lot of flour on the bottom. It's not a big deal if you don't do that, but all that flour will be baked and it'll come out afterwards. Then you place the dough in the pan, and then you use that flour on your hand so it doesn't stick to push out all the air bubbles and to push the dough evenly into the pan so it goes into all the corners. I use all the flour when I'm doing this. I just keep doing it till all the flour is used, and then you place the pan and dough under a cover. It's nice if you can get an opaque cover that you can see it, and then you leave this an hour or to 3, and once it's over the top of the pan, so the dough is over the top, then you're ready to bake. You preheat the oven at 400, score the top of the loaf, and then place it in the oven for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you take it out, don't take it out, but you turn it 180 degrees for another 10 minutes, and then that should be pretty well perfect, as this loaf happened to be. And if you're lucky, it will just pop out. Sometimes you have to use a knife to score the edges to get it out, but this time it worked perfectly. And then you let it stand for an hour before you cut the bread. The only way to eat this bread, no big holes. After all that work, the greatest food on earth.